Jeff Peterson from Heartland Farm Partners is our corn and soybean market analyst this week. U.S. farmers are harvesting a soybean crop that could be nearly 9% larger than the country's biggest ever. In its October crop report released Wednesday, the U.S. Department of Agriculture increased this season's soybean output forecast to almost 4.3 billion bushels. 4 of the nation's top 5 growing states are expected to produce record yields, including a state average of 61 bushels per acre in Nebraska. The agency's estimate for corn was slightly lower than September's number, but it would still be a record. We talked with Jeff Thursday afternoon and started by looking at the USDA's latest projections.
You know what's really interesting, Jeff, this is the first time that I can remember that actually the average trade guess was the same for both. 173.4 and a 51.4 nailed them both. Brought the corn yield down from a 174.4 and actually higher than where we were last year, though, to 168.4. But they're pretty optimistic on yields in Nebraska, even though they are coming down. A 181 is what we're looking at, but that came down from a 184, but that's still off the last year to 185. But overall, it looks like the corn yields are going to be off a little bit, but over on the bean side, that 51.4, that compares to a 50.6 last month, compared to a 48 last year, and we thought beans were really pretty good last year. Nebraska numbers, they keep bringing them up. 61 bushels the acre, brought that up from a 59, and we were 58 last year. So overall, bean yields look good. Corn yields going to be down, but I think the Nebraska yields actually are going to be down more than what we're going to see across the rest of the nation.
How do these numbers impact the balance sheet?
Yeah, as we dig into them, there was a lot of changes to kind of take into account. As you look at it, we ended up bringing up ultimately the beginning stock number 22 million. Then we had some changes in there. 400,000 more acres planted was an adjustment, up 200,000 on the harvested. When we brought our yield down, it still meant that our total supply was down about 14 million bushels. We did bring up exports 50 million. Ending stocks came down 64 million bushels to 2.32 billion. A big number compared to the 1.738 last year, Jeff, but overall, at least it was smaller on corn.
In soybeans, though?
Yeah, and the soybeans, a little bit different. Beginning stocks were up 2. Production ended up coming up 70 million. But because of the problems that South America had, demand did come up another 40 million on exports, but that still left our carryout stocks 30 million bushels higher at 395 million compared to 197 million last year.
It was interesting. Markets were initially up after that report, and then they closed lower, and today they were up quite well across both markets.
I know. It's interesting on beans. Beans actually traded higher early coming into the morning break, then traded lower, then we came back higher. I think really what it says is there's still some uncertainty out there. The uncertainty is about the bean side. There's some in the industry still think we could see a bigger bean number yet. Our personal opinion as a company, though, is that we do think we've put in our harvest lows, and I think we will see a gradual grind higher out of here.
What's the USDA expecting for production in Argentina and Brazil?
Yeah, you know, those numbers came out, 83.5 million on the corn side for Brazil compared to 82.5. But here's the kicker, they were 67 million metric tons last year, so we do have more corn that will be coming on. 102 million metric tons on the beans versus a 101, and that was 96.5 million bushels last year. So bringing up Brazil, Argentina was unchanged from last month, but 36.5 million compared to 28 last year. And over on the bean side, 57 million metric tons versus 56.8 last year.
Tell me, back in this country, what harvest progress looks like across the country.
Jeff, in all the years I've been doing this, I would say this is the most variable that I've ever seen. As you kind of dig into it, it just depends on where you're at, really. 35% corn nationally, that compared to 38% last year and 38% on our average, but Nebraska is way behind that. 23% harvested, and that actually compares to 23% last year, but we should be somewhere closer to about 30%. Over on the bean side, we're sitting at about 44% harvested, 56% last year, but that should be closer to about 50% nationally. We're the same place in Nebraska at 44%, but we were 50% last year, but we should be closer to about 53%. So harvest is lagging behind.
What's your price forecast here for corn and soybeans?
Yeah, we think going forward from here over the next 2 to 3 months, you know, we should be up in that 370 to 390 area on corn and getting close to the $10 area on beans. We think is very achievable. Anything beyond that is going to take some problems coming out of South America.
How do you use that for selling strategies in a couple of different situations, I'm sure, in farms across the state?
Yeah, the best way I like to break it down, if you've got bushels you haven't sold and you bring them into the elevator, if they're going to charge you a minimum fee that's probably 10, 15 cents a bushel, just go ahead and put the bushels on storage or delayed pricing. If they're going to charge you that higher price or for delayed pricing, then just go ahead and put them on a basis contract. And I'd do that same thing on both the corn and the bean side. We think there'll be a better pricing opportunity down the road on both the basis side and the future side at a later time.